welcome to the Inherited Abode. I'm your host, Summer, and we are just going to pick up right where we left off. I've told you about the three separate things I was working on at the same time. I'm working on a funeral service, which I've just completed. I'm working on getting the house secured that we have now inherited. My stepbrother and I have inherited, so that I can go back home. And then I need to start on these legal documents. I need to actually become the executor of the will and carry out those duties. Don't know how those. I don't know what that is. And so got the house where I needed. All the apps work. I can see all the way around the house. I feel secure that the security system works. I know how to get in and let people in remotely. Great, good to go. And I got an uncle that's gonna come and cut the grass. Great. Uh, Spoiler alert, I learned I am now a proud owner of a hedge trimmer, and I now trim my own hedges. Welcome to home ownership. So now the last thing is, or the thing that is now my second job, third job. I'm a mother. I'm working full time, and now I have to work on executing everything in this will. So let me deviate for just a second so I can set the scene. So now it's 2024. It's the summer. The summer's ending. I realized that, because you're probably wondering, well, what happened with your job? You say you work full time. I did take a little time off during this time to kind of do the whole funeral and everything. I came back and I realized I was not going to be able to continue in my role. It wasn't that he wanted me to leave or anything like that. I worked a very high stakes job that had millions of dollars on the line. And if I missed one zero or put the wrong language in, I worked at a law firm, that could cost our clients lots of money. I did not think I was in a place to keep up with the level of detail that was needed to do my role. So I met with my boss. We sat down, we formulated a plan, we hired some people, and I left on good terms. I just knew I couldn't do it at that time. I knew I needed something that was a little more monotonous, something that didn't use a lot of brain power, something I could just come in, do the job, and leave. So I took on this contract role with someone that just needed an executive assistant, allegedly. We'll save that for another time. But I ended up bouncing between three different small businesses throughout the next year, as I was trying to do all these things. I ended up coming back to my home and the week of school starting and getting my son ready for school. So I jumped right back into it. So I didn't actually take any time to grieve, because between the funeral and school starting was me doing what I'm about to explain, which is starting the probate court process. So I ended up trying to figure out where I could get an estate planner attorney. So something else you need to know: you need to identify one. You need to research. You need to figure out who you would possibly want to use. If your parents have one that drafted their will and you can get in touch with them and you feel comfortable with them, stick with them. If you are, the situation is kind of like mine, where this guy had already retired, he was old, his sons didn't know about my parents specifically, so I really needed someone I could work with. I didn't have a relationship with them. I needed to find someone and who understood that I'm not in that location. I'm going to need you to be able to do things virtually. I'm not going to be able to show up depending on where you're located. And so I ended up getting two referrals. My mother had used a financial planner when my dad passed away, just so that we would know how to do the little bit that they had, like his retirement and things like that, so we wouldn't mess up anything. And so I reached out to her, one, to retain her services as a financial planner, because I needed help with, now that my parents have passed away and you're familiar with their assets, what am I supposed to do? What are the tax implications? How does this work? And then second, did she know of an estate planning attorney? She did know one. Then I also asked a friend who I knew had set up trust for his children, and he gave me a name. Well, when I called the one for the referral from the financial planner, that person had like a 60 to 90 day wait. I was like, oh no, I can't wait. I should have known if they had a wait, they probably were really good. So I ended up calling the second referral. They were able to take me immediately. I felt very confident. So I ended up signing on with them, paying the retainer, starting to get things started. It took us a long time to get started because I needed to bring the wills to them. This is where this witness comes in. The witness needed to attest to the fact that I am who I say I am, as according to these wills, and that they know me in that capacity with that legal name. Again, I'm somewhere 5 hours away. I'm not near any of my close friends, and so I ultimately had to get like an acquaintance that's kind of like my friend. She ended up being a very good friend, but she didn't know a lot about my family at the time, and I had to ask her to take off work or to find time to come and because it has to be during work hours to come to the law firm and sign the documents as my witness. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I should have known through the intake process and how this law firm started to prepare for us to file with the courts, that they didn't know what they were doing. They asked me if these wills were the original wills. I don't know. I just know that I've always had them. I have no idea. They decided to file a joint, so mother and father together. Let's do the succession that way. Let's do the probate that way, instead of doing separately, because there are two separate wills and there are two separate people. I should have known that something about that was weird. Next, they sent, once they got everything together, drafted what they needed to draft, they sent all of this to the wrong county. In Louisiana, we have parishes, and every other state is a county. They sent it to the wrong county because, again, I'm using a law firm that's local to where I am. My parents live 5 hours away. That county, that parish is 5 hours away. You have to file in that parish, in that county. I assumed that you could research this so that estate planning attorneys know where to file depending on which county. They sent it to the wrong county. So we lost about 4 to 6 weeks of just trying to recall the paperwork. So this is legal. This is the court system. So you can't just be like, oh, well, can you give it back and we'll send it to the right. No, you have to file motions just to get it back. You have to file motions to get it sent to the correct place. This law firm asked this county, the wrong county, to send it to the right county. They said okay. They did not send everything. They just sent like 1 or 2 documents. So when we called the correct county, they say, well, we only have like a 2-page document. We don't have the wills. We don't have anything else. So we have to wait because everything's being sent by snail mail, by USPS. So we are waiting for all of this documentation to come back. So the file to come back from the wrong place, and the documentation from the new parish is like, hey, we can't move forward because we don't have what we need. So they have to legally send us all of this. So we're wasting 4 to 6 weeks to get all this done. At this point, I am extremely frustrated. I am already starting to call the first law firm referral, and I already know I'm about to go with them. I would like for this law firm to get it established, and then I'm firing them. So from the time that I engaged with them, so when you sign on with a law firm, you sign an engagement letter, you pay your retainer, and then hopefully you have a meeting and you kind of discuss things. They never ask me about the assets or anything. They just was filing paperwork. It took 8 to 10 weeks before all of the proper paperwork was sent to the correct court in the correct parish, county, and it was opened. It was officially a case that was opened. The reason it took so long is because even when we sent everything and got everything sent to the right place, they sent back again and said, we can't open this because these aren't the original wills. I'm staring blank stare at the law firm and my attorney like, you never told me these weren't original wills. And she's like, well, I asked you. And I'm like, well, I don't know what they are. Lo and behold, you know when you have an original will. An original will is typically in a little folded, in a little like elongated white envelope. It says last will and testament. It is on, if you're a Gen X or elder millennial, remember resume paper? It's on something that feels like resume paper, but it's legal. It's a legal size, but feels like resume paper. And then the notary the seal is raised. And the signatures are in blue ink. Okay? If you don't have that, you don't have the original will. I gave them copies on regular legal white paper. Why didn't they inform me at that time, we can't submit this, you need to go find the original wills? I do not know. Why did they move forward and let me do all that? I do not know. So now I'm going back to the law firm that my parents used to draft their wills. I have the documentation in the letter that shows that they said they will retain my father's will on file and gave him copies. I go there, they do have my mother's will. They give me the original. They do not have my father's will. It is missing. It is missing. I do not have it. The court cannot open this succession without an original will. So what do we do there? See how at every point I'm having a problem. This is a full-time job after my full-time jobs. This is me on the phone. This is me with the court. This is me talking to the lawyer. This is me researching. This is me digging in the files that I brought home that I'm trying to figure out, do I have it? I'm literally digging through everything. What ended up happening is that my attorney had to draft an affidavit, have that law firm that drafted my parents' will, my father's will specifically, have them sign it admitting that they lost it and that they attest that this copy is a true copy of the original one and that it should be admitted as the will, as the legal will. That's what we had to do. Through snail mail. Real wet signatures with blue ink. Then sent back snail mail. Then sent to the court. So at this point, you know, as soon as we got this done and as soon as the court opened this case, I fired them. I absolutely did. This was atrocious. We hadn't even gotten to discussing what the will said. We had not gone through assets. They had not asked me a single solitary thing. I talked to the other law firm, the one that was referred to me first from the financial planner. I went ahead and signed up with them. I went ahead and paid the retainer. And I started the clock ticking because she said it's going to take about 60 to 90 days before we can get to you. That is fine. At this point, I've wasted 60 days. That is fine. Go for it. They gave me some time. I ended up getting a refund from that attorney for whatever was left because, of course, there are court fees, there are postage and all of that. They subtract that out because they did perform that work. I waited. And I finally got, so if this is in the fall, this is around October, November. I was officially onboarded at the beginning of the year, 2025, and I met in person with my new law firm in March of 2025. So just to give you a timeline, my mother passed away in June. We are now in March of 2025. At that meeting, I brought all my documentation. I had a whole thing, like this plastic thing I brought with all of these folders because we had been communicating through email before this meeting, and she was asking me to list everything. She was asking me, you can tell me what's your father's, what's your mother's, is anything inherited? Do they have cars? Like all the things. So I'm going through writing this all out. I'm putting it in a spreadsheet. I'm making sure I have the documentation. The hard documentation, like, whatever paperwork that I have, and I bring all that with me, and I scanned it in and uploaded it, so I also have it electronically, and just in case I lose something. And I meet with them, and she goes over, because I had scanned a lot of stuff to her, she had already done her prep work, plus was verifying with what I had in person if I hadn't scanned it to her. And she went through and we went through all of the assets that I was aware of. She was able to pull the assessor's information on the house. She was able to explain to me how things would be divided between my brother and I based on the wills. She was able to explain to me that Louisiana is a common law state, and like how assets are shared with married spouses, all of those things. That was all. We were there maybe 2 hours, maybe even 3. That was all the first meeting. That was the download. If you are not getting anything like that, you are not at the right place. By this time, though, I had also researched this law firm, and my attorney was certified specifically for estate, or licensed for estate planning. She had an extra certification that the state provided that she also had that. So this was what she did. She didn't do everything. This is what she did. I felt very confident with her, and as I continue to tell you how I've been working with her, you'll see it's like night and day. But now we are ready. We have the right attorney. We have the case opened, and now we know where the problems lie in the will and where we have some issues that we're going to need to address. So now you know where we're starting when we're talking about the administrative and operational burden of what happens after your parents pass away. Stay tuned for what comes next.